we learned how to move our spaceship using our keyboard in the left and the right hand side direction. And in this video I was about to give it some enemies, but then I realized our spaceship is just moving out of the screen when we go to the left and when we go to the right. So why is this happening? So when it goes to the right, this right border of the spaceship of our game window, it actually reaches the 800 width that we have set, and when it goes beyond this 800, it goes to maybe 810 and 805 pixels. So there's no restriction right now to the spaceship movement in the left and the right hand side direction, and similarly when it moves to left hand side, it goes a little bit lesser than 0 and it goes into minus territory because this x coordinate is an integer. That's why it can go to negatives, and even it can go to minus 450 or something. So what should we do? So what we are going to do is that when it reaches the 0 coordinate, then we are going to, anytime it goes into negative stuff, we are going to make sure that it stays at 0 by using an if condition. So we are going to basically tell our spaceship that, hey, if your x coordinate reaches 0 or less than 0, make sure it turns back to 0. And similarly on the right hand side, we are going to tell our spaceship, if your x coordinate reaches this 800 x coordinate mark, then I don't want you to go beyond it, and change your x coordinate to 800 again. So every time it goes beyond 800, it's gonna just delete itself and go back to 800, but it's gonna happen so quickly that the eyes won't see it, and it will look like that the spaceship can't go beyond 800. So let's do that. Let's write an if condition just beyond this arithmetic operator we have over here, and as I said, we are just going to write player x. If this player x becomes less than 0, that is the x coordinate becomes less than 0, then we are going to change the value of player x to 0. And similarly, if our let's write lf player x becomes greater than or equal to 736 pixels. So why are we taking this 736 pixels instead of 800 pixels? So because our pixel, we have to take into consideration the size of our spaceship. So if you remember, the PNG size of the spaceship is 64 by 64 pixels. So the width of this spaceship is 64 pixels. That is why we are subtracting 64 from 800. And that means 736 pixels. So if we chose any other number, for example 800, then it will stop at this point and not before that. But we wanted to stop over here and not allow any part of spaceship to appear beyond the game window. So that's why we are choosing this 736 pixel number. We just subtracted 64 from 800, and over here we are just gonna change the value of whenever it goes beyond 736, we want it to again go back to 736 x coordinate. And this will mean that it will look that it cannot go beyond, but it's just deleting that spaceship and creating a new one at 736 x coordinate pixel. So let's check this out, and hopefully it works well. Let's reload it and let's see if it works or not. So as you can see, when I press the right arrow key, it doesn't move beyond this. And feel free to try it yourself and change the x coordinates, just experiment with it a little bit. The last video was pretty long and this video is pretty short, so that's good. So in the next video, we're finally going to create an enemy for our spaceship, so I'll see you over there. And how to create boundaries for our spaceship so that it doesn't go out of bounds. In this video, we are going to give it our first enemy. So I've already downloaded an enemy image which looks like a happy space invader. It's not going to be so happy when we shoot it with our spaceship. But anyways, let's get this icon from flaticon.com just like we always have, and search for Space Invaders, and I'm going to go with this red Space Invader. You can select whatever you want and download the 64 by 64 picture as usual, and obviously in the PNG format. So now we can go back to our code, and just like we did with the player, we can add this enemy.png inside our code. So let's do that. Let's just copy this whole code and just add it below the player, change it to enemy. So we're gonna change everything to enemy, so we just have to rename everything. Let's call it enemy, and then I'm just gonna copy and paste this in the remaining areas. So let's just copy and paste everything, and instead of the player.png, we are gonna call it the enemy.png, and make sure you rename the PNG file, otherwise if you write enemy.png, it's not gonna work. But anyways, so we need to also create this function again, so let's just copy and paste this too. So we're gonna paste this over here. Instead of player, we're gonna call it enemy, and everything else should remain the same. Let's format it properly. Another thing is in PyCharm, if you want to format everything properly, if you have written code that's not formatted and doesn't look good, what you can do is you can just press Ctrl Alt and L and it will format everything properly inside your code. So it's just Ctrl L. So as you can see, it says imports optimized. It will just make your code look good. So again, the command is Ctrl plus Alt plus L on your keyboard. So anyways, now that we have added the function of the enemy, let's just go down below and add the enemy over here so that we can call the function while our while loop is running. So let's add the enemy over here, and instead of the player X, let's just call it enemy, and instead of the player X, we are going to call enemy X, and instead of player Y, we're going to give it a value of enemy Y. So right now you can see that the coordinates are the same as of the spaceship, so this should overlap our spaceship. So let's see if it's overlapping or not. So right now it's not overlapping. Let's actually check out why is that happening. So this is because inside that enemy function we have not renamed this to enemy.emg. So let's do that. Let's rename it enemy.image and then just reload it, and this should work properly. So now you can see that the enemy is on top of the spaceship, but this is not what we want. We want the enemy to be like somewhere on the top, so maybe in the middle but on the top. So we can let the enemy X remain the same, but I'm going to change the enemy Y to something else. Let's give it a value of 50. I've already tried it out and 50 looks pretty good. So let's see how it looks. Alright, so our spaceship is moving and we have an enemy. But the problem with this enemy is that it's not moving, it's very boring. So we are going to fix that in the next video. But for right now, what I want is that this enemy should appear in the random places. So whenever we kill an enemy, it is going to appear again, or in the game terms, it's going to respawn again. So I want it to respawn in different places, maybe on different x-axis. So maybe over here after it's killed. And maybe in Y it should also appear in different places. So maybe next time over here, next time over here. So we want it to appear in different places. So every time it reloads, basically we want it to appear in different places. And even at the starting of the game, it should not be constant. It should be totally random. So what we are going to do is we are going to make this enemy X and enemy Y actually random. So we have to first write down the line that actually helps us randomize values. So we are going to import a package known as random. And this is pretty easy to do. So let me just minimize this over here and then scroll down. And over here we are just going to write, instead of 370, we are just going to write random.randint. So this is a method inside the random package to choose a random integer between two values. And then we have to give it the value that we want. So we want a starting value and an end value of 0 and the end value of 800. And similarly with Y, we wanted to give a value between maybe 50 and 150. So let's change this to 50. The 50 should be the starting point. So the minimum height should be 50, and then it can go till over here. Let's say 150. It's approximately 150. So I'm going to give it a value of 150. Alright guys, so this is looking pretty good. Let's just run it again and see if it works. So let's run main. Alright, so this is working. It respawned over here. Let's reload it to see if it respawns somewhere else. So let's just reload it and see where this time it appears. This time it appears over here. Let's try the third time. Third time is a charm and it always works. So this time it appears over here. So our program is looking pretty good. We have created an enemy and it is respawning in different places. So this is just looking pretty good. In the next video, we are going to make sure that our enemy moves. So right now our enemy is stationary. It's not moving from the left or the right, and it's not going down. So we are going to make sure that we rectify that in the next video. It's going to be really exciting. So I'll see you over there.